Hello and welcome to another Poetry Deep Dive today. I love Denis Martindale. He has written over 3,700 poems for the Poemhunter website. Denis Martindale has written a new poem titled Stephen Gayford, Drawn to Paint, and here's what the poem's message shares with us today. So we're really going to get into how Martindale so beautifully bridges the gap between the rhythmic flow of words and the stunning, highly visual world of wildlife art.
Okay, so right off the bat, we establish the spiritual and thematic core of Gayford's work. It's a simple yet totally profound baseline, a sincere respect for all of God's creatures. Before we even get into talking about which specific animals the artist actually chose to paint, we absolutely have to understand the foundation of his worldview. And honestly, Martindale captures this perfectly. Gayford didn't just casually paint animals. No way. He painted them with this deep, inherent reverence for their very existence, basically treating every single creature as a masterpiece in its own right.
And this brings us to a really crucial framework from the text, which is this idea of selective art. It really sets up how Gayford approached painting everything from, say, a majestic big cat, all the way down to an inquisitive little meerkat. Selective art isn't about ignoring the value of certain subjects. Actually, scratch that. It's more about the artist actively leaning into the idea that beauty is truly in the eye of the beholder. His process was this deliberate, thoughtful tribute to the unique character of the animals he just felt a profound connection to. He wasn't out here just mass-producing images, right? He was carefully curating his focus, basing it purely on what moved him personally.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it sets up a fascinating artistic dilemma that's explored right in the poem's foundation, choosing subjects that are highly prized versus those that are maybe a little quaint or even just plain weird. Martindale's verses point out this universal truth in the art world. There's kind of this hierarchy of subjects. Some animals naturally draw massive crowds, while others are just, well, a bit odd. Maybe not the sort of creature you'd naturally want to throw into a canvas. This stanza really clears the air. It makes us so much more aware of the conscious, deliberate choices an artist has to make every single time they pick up a brush. Martindale brilliantly illustrates this exact point with a rhythmic comparison, and it takes us directly into Gayford's specific choices. On the one hand, Stephen could have easily painted a jackal. He definitely had the skill for it. But instead, he actively chose to tackle the jaguar, designating it the feline star. And it's not just about painting a cat, It's really about capturing the absolute essence of a creature that just commands attention. He's selecting the subject that radiates a very specific, powerful energy, an energy he desperately wanted to translate through his paints. Continuing with this kind of poetic juxtaposition, we see the artist choosing the majestic racing horse over a moo-moo cow. I love this because Martindale uses a wonderfully playful tone here. Moo-moo cow contrasts so beautifully with the sleek, dynamic, powerful imagery of a racing horse. Gayford chose the horse to stay on course with his distinct artistic vision. It really just goes to show that his portfolio wasn't some random assortment. It was a driven, highly focused collection of subjects that perfectly align with what he felt compelled, almost entirely driven, to bring to life. Every single decision is highly intentional. When faced with the choice between an elephant and a kangaroo, he opts for the giant friend, the elephant. Now, why is that? Well, because it best fits his tribute to character. An elephant carries this immense weight, a deep wisdom, and an undeniable presence that Gayford clearly resonated with. The poem literally asks, for what else could he do? And that implies that for an artist like Gayford, the choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was just this inevitable pull toward the subjects that spoke the loudest to his creative spirit.
He repeatedly leans toward subjects that genuinely inspire him. He could have painted a scary bat, but instead he tackles the chimpanzee with glee. I absolutely love this line from Martindale because it completely highlights the joy in Gayford's process. He knew he must do that. Art shouldn't just be some rigid exercise in technique, right? It should be a vivid manifestation of the artist's joy. Gayford picked the subjects that made him happy, the ones he could sit down and paint with genuine, infectious enthusiasm.
Consider this pretty extreme contrast. Choosing the fallow deer over a centipede clearly helps the artist succeed in highlighting natural beauty. And this is where Martindale's poem really truly underscores that concept of selective art we defined a few moments ago. Sure, a centipede is certainly one of God's creatures, absolutely. But to create a captivating, emotionally resonant piece of wildlife art, the graceful, serene fallow deer was obviously the clear path to success. It was the subject that best allowed Gayford to showcase his incredibly unique talents and his sharp eye for elegance. This also brings a really wonderful touch of humor into the creative process. Think about it. Gayford could paint a tall giraffe, or he could pause to paint a fly.
but instead he chose to just stop, laugh, and let the fly fly by. It's such a fantastic little moment of levity in the poem, and it reminds us that a massive part of being a great artist is knowing what not to paint. It's about knowing when to just appreciate a tiny moment in nature without feeling this burning need to capture it, saving all that intense focus for the grander subjects, like the tall giraffe. So when we take a step back, we can see the complete, beautiful picture of Stephen Gayford's artistic process. He had a completely sincere respect for all creatures. He inherently understood that beauty is subjective. He created these stunning tributes to both physical beauty and inner character, and crucially, he chose his subjects well and gave the rest a rest. Stephen simply painted what he liked best, all while treating every chosen subject with deep, deep respect. Honestly, it's a total masterclass in artistic focus.
This incredibly dedicated process builds to the poem's final, satisfying conclusion for May 17, 2026. The quote here perfectly wraps up Martindale's tribute. It basically confirms that the artist's true success lies in honoring his personal favorites. By choosing what he genuinely liked best, Gayford ensured that his passion translated directly into his work. And as the audience, we can absolutely feel that authenticity. We can tell he loved what he was painting, and that is exactly why his artwork resonates so deeply with everyone who views it.
And you know what? This selective vision ultimately created a lasting legacy. We're talking thousands of his paintings still being sold today. The source material actually notes that even right now, platforms like eBay in the UK are constantly uncovering newly discovered paintings by Gayford that fans haven't even seen before. Because he stayed true to his vision, and because he painted with such proficient, undeniable joy, his artwork continues to circulate. It's still bringing the beauty of the natural world into thousands of homes long after the paint has dried. We're going to wrap up our explainer today by bringing Gayford's artistic philosophy straight into your own life. If you were holding the brush, what subjects would you choose to give your focus? Whether you are an artist, a writer, a professional, or just navigating your everyday daily life, we all have a finite amount of time and energy. Gayford chose the jaguar over the jackal. He chose exactly what brought him glee. It really asks you to consider what you value most when choosing where to place your own focus. So what are your feline stars? Think about that as you go about your day. Thank you so much for exploring this brilliant poem with me.